Greetings, brethren, and welcome to this Sabbath service for the fourth day of the 11th month on God's sacred calendar. That means we're just a little bit less than 3 months, actually a little bit more than 2.5 months away from the next feast day, Passover. We've got the rest of the 11th, all of the 12th month, and just 13 days into the first month. And then that evening, at sunset, the 14th, when the 14th begins, the Passover foot washing service will be conducted. Now this year, on the pagan Roman calendar, that means Passover will be Thursday evening, April 2nd. And let me bring this forward, see if you can see this. That will be Thursday night, April 2nd. And even though the date changes at sunset on God's sacred calendar, becomes the 14th that evening, it still stays April 2nd until midnight on man's pagan Roman calendar, the way man does it. But April 2nd, that evening, just after sunset, the 14th of the first month begins, and that's the evening for the Passover. And on the pagan Roman calendar we're talking about today is the 24th day of January 2015, and April 2nd, 2015, that evening is Passover. Hope you had a good week, brethren, and even if you had a week full of trials and tribulation, I hope you're able to do as I'm doing, and that you're able to just look back at last week and smile at it and say, I have to stop. It's all over. The Sabbath is here. God commands us to take a break from all that. Woohoo! And so here we are. And today, friends, we have what we'll be doing is I have a little comment by Mr. Armstrong we'll be playing. And then I'm going to show you I'll give you a quick look now. I think I gave you a look last week, and we've been running it for a few nights on Nightcast, although we didn't quite have it finished. When I got into a situation where we had to try something different, the old system wasn't working. We're having to jump a lot of hoops lately, and I've got reasons why. I might want to ask you before I sign off to just pray, help me through some of the struggles we're going through. Hey, there are blessings in the struggles, so I have no complaints. But it is nice to have friends pray for you, and I appreciate those of you that are out there that back me up that way, and I back you up that way. I pray for you too, because the whole name of this game that we're all in at the moment is becoming qualified to be teachers in the kingdom of God, and there's no problem with wanting to be in the first resurrection and no problem wanting to escape the tribulation on the horizon. In fact, that's very wise, and I got some scriptures to show you why some of our hopes are positively oriented, something Jesus Christ wants us to have in the way of hopes. And then what we should be doing while we don't have an overall human shepherd, a single shepherd like we used to have. A lot of you follow different ministers. Some of you get here with me either regularly or from time to time, and I've got one question I'm going to answer that I just saw on the social network or email, one or the other, and I've got a couple of scriptures, and I'll cover that. Now, I bit my tongue a little while ago, so I'm having a little trouble enunciating because I got to keep the tongue away from those teeth where I bit my tongue. Ouch! But we're going to go to Mr. Armstrong in a moment. He'll take a few minutes, give me a little more tongue recovery time. But let's take a look at our studio here first. I've got the slides that I said I was going to rearrange. I've got those rearranged, and we'll be going through those. We've got the great image from Daniel 2 on these top of these two columns up above me. Let's come on out. We'll take a look at this great image here that Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream one night. Really bothered him, and he wanted to know, he knew God was behind that dream, and he wanted to know, what's the meaning of this statue? But he wasn't going to let any of his wizards or wise men or magicians pull the wool over him by telling him what he dreamed, after he tells them what he dreams, and they just make up a bunch of schlock about it. He says, oh no, if you know the meaning of this dream through the gods, they believed in multiple gods, then your gods will be able to tell me the dream too. Well, none of his magicians or wise men were able to tell him the dream. So he wasn't about to trust him with the meaning of that dream, and he was about to have all their heads cut off. But then one of the servants said, O King Nebuchadnezzar, there is a man. There's Daniel. And when I was cast in the prison, he was able to interpret my dream and that of the chief cook and bottle washer, and he, the God of Daniel, can interpret dreams. And so Daniel interpreted what that thing means. Now, we're able to zoom in on that thing. I think. Let's see. I hope I got the right button because this is kind of fun to do. Let's see where's that button for that thing? Okay, yeah, we can zoom up there to that close-up of the great image. We've also got him down here on the floor, on the other side, too. He's facing a little different. Very important, because we're at the stage of the two legs. The Roman Empire, the Eastern Division, the Western Division. Yeah, it's in the abyss right now. It's in the pit for just a little bit. But once the seventh head is revived, wow, that thing's coming out with like gangbusters. And we'll cover that. In fact, when that thing comes out, let's go up to the beast that comes out of the sea from Revelation 13. When that seventh head is revived and this beast comes up out of the sea, the 10th horn, there's 10 horns on this seventh head, and it's referenced in two different ways. It's referenced as the 7 remaining horns of the 10 horns. The first 3 are plucked up at the behest of the Pope, and the 7 remaining horns, they relate to the 7 heads on the other beast from Revelation 13. We've got that on the other side of the room over here. This is called the beast from the earth. And this beast is described beginning in the 11th verse of Revelation 13, whereas this other beast that comes up out of the sea, it's described right from the beginning of Revelation 13, the beginning in verse 1 and first 10 verses. And they each have 7 heads, but the 7 heads on this beast from the sea, from the first part of Revelation 13, are the same 4 beasts. Now there's 4 beasts but 7 heads, because one of the beasts has 4 heads. The 4 beasts from the Revelation, let me back it up and say it like this. In Daniel 7, King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream about 4 beasts that come up from out of the sea. Daniel had the same dream and was able to interpret that in Daniel 7 for the king. And those 4 beasts, remember now, in Daniel 7, if you take a look at Daniel 7, those 4 beasts come up from out of the sea. Well, I'll leave that picture on the screen for a moment with that one beast that's got those different heads on it and the ocean behind him coming up out of the ocean, out of the sea. Let me just flip real quickly. This is very important, brethren. This is what I want to cover for us today, and then Mr. Armstrong will tell you why what we're talking about here is very important and how it relates to like crazy to what's going on in the news and how we need to be aware of this, and we need to be aware of what he talks about in the I tell you what, let's do though. My tongue is hurting me a little bit because I bit it. I bit my tongue earlier. So let me come out of this and let's go to Mr. Armstrong. He's just a couple-minute talk, and then I'll come back and read how Daniel 7 parallels and corresponds to this first beast from the sea out of Revelation 13, and then we're going to go through each of these 12 slides behind me that relates to these beasts in Revelation, because there's 7 kings, and we're going to talk about that. I've talked about that before, but I've got some pictures we can go close up on each one, and I think you'll find this helpful for really getting it into your mind. But first, let's go. Let's hear Mr. Armstrong.
Now, take what I've printed some 4, 5, 6 months ago now. I believe it was in the Worldwide News or in the Good News. I had the 1260, the 1290, and the 1335 days of Daniel 12. Put some of those things together. Put a lot of these things together into the Great Tribulation. And all of these prophecies, they're all beginning to come in and fit into a certain picture right now where it never had been straightened out before.
Now, friends, this next comment that Mr. Armstrong says, I love this. I love the humility that just shines through Mr. Armstrong as he makes this next comment.
I never claimed I've got everything straightened out yet, but God has revealed truth to me and is still revealing truth to me.
Now, friends, he's got another comment. I'm going to to him and let him finish. But while he's saying God is still revealing truth through me, you know, the last 5 years that Mr. Armstrong was alive were very, very important years, and God has caused recordings of Mr. Armstrong's sermons, Bible studies, broadcasts during those last 5 years. And you know, for a man 88 years old to 93 years old, he died in his 94th year. He didn't live to be 94, but he died in his 94th year. He was 93 years old as far as counting years go. When he died, he was 93. He was in his 94th year. You know, when you're first born, you're in your first year, even though you're not 1 year old yet. So that's the way that works. But in those upper years, in his late 80s, early 90s, he is flying all over the place and holding sermons in cities where people from multiple congregations are coming out in sizes of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 at a time in these various cities. He's flying all over the place doing that, and he's just, previous to that, been flying all over Europe and revisiting heads of state. And he shared with us things from that, too. And all of that's important. All that relates to this. And the encouragement he's giving us in this to look into the 1335, the 1290, and the 1260. And in the last few years, it was a real blessing to be at headquarters those last few years and be able to hear Mr. Armstrong going through these things. And as he's learning them, many times I was sitting in that audience when he had just learned something and was revealing it for the first time before an audience. And, hearing that was great. Let him finish up.
And it's about time a lot of us begin to wake up and realize that. Because if it's truth, you better get in on it.
Now, at that point, I want to repeat maybe more than one time that because if it's truth, you better get in on it. And that's why we're going to be going through some of these things we're going through today, friends, that relate to these pictures on the screen over my right shoulder on the left side of your screen. But I was mentioning this beast from the sea from Revelation 13. The first part of Revelation 13 describes a beast that comes up out of the sea. Then it describes another beast that comes up from the earth. So there's two beasts described in Revelation 13. And those two beasts, they relate back to Daniel 7. They relate over to Revelation 17. And there's it crashed. Well, we won't send a report this time, but I'm going to need that. So let me get that. I tell you what, I'm going to zoom in on the slides behind me while I bring our screen that I'm going to need back up on the screen. So what you're seeing on the screen there, the first 5 photographs, friends, are the 5 kings that are fallen from Revelation 17, verse 10. And let's see, really did crash. All right. I'm going to need that video player, so let me get that. We're live. Let me just get this back up on the screen. Okay, we're coming along. Doing Nightcast nightly, I have learned how to be able to just keep my composure if things fall apart while I'm live, and just to keep talking and ad-libbing, and then just straighten everything out and keep going. Excuse me, best I can. Okay, good. I got it. Just to show you that I got it, I'm going to come back out here for a second. Yeah, we got it. And I'm going to have Mr. Armstrong repeat this again in a moment, because if it's truth, you'd better get in on it, he says. So we're going to pay attention. We're going to focus on some things that are true. Let's go today, a number of things. And I hope not to be too long with it. We'll punch. We're going to punch through things today. You watch, friend. I'm going to really punch. Let's go over to that left wall again. I gotta redesign this so the buttons I push are larger so that I can find them easier than groping around for them here like I am. Oh yeah, okay. We come out here and then we can go over to that. Yeah, I want to go over to that beast from the sea over on the far wall over here. And I was just explaining that King Nebuchadnezzar saw 4 beasts come out of the sea. That's described in Daniel 7. And God wanted us to get the connection between those 4 beasts that come out of the sea that King Nebuchadnezzar saw and that Daniel interpreted for the king and described, and it was recorded for all of us. And then when God talks about this beast that comes up from the sea, he describes it with the same 4 beasts. When God describes this beast that comes out of the sea in Revelation 13, the first part of Revelation 13, God is describing this beast from the sea from Revelation 13 with the same animal beast that King Nebuchadnezzar saw separately come up out of the sea. A lion, a bear, a leopard, and this great and dreadful thing. And that's exactly what's on this beast out of the sea. It's got a body like a leopard, if you read the first part of Revelation 13. It's got a mouth like a lion. It's got claws and paws like a bear. And it's got 4 heads of a leopard. And then it's got this great and terrible head with iron teeth and iron head and 10 horns on it. And even though it's 4 beasts, it's 7 heads, because that third beast, the leopard beast, has 4 heads. So the first beast, a lion, that's 1 head. The second beast, a bear, that's 2 heads. The third beast with 4 heads, now all of a sudden we're counting 6 heads. The lion, the bear, that's 1, 2. And then 3, 4, 5, 6 for the 4 heads of the leopard. And then the last head, the 4th beast, has that great and terrible iron-like, that head with the iron teeth, and on it 10 horns. And the distinction we need to make here is that these 10 horns on this 7th head are not the same 10 horns that are on the 7th head of the beast from the earth. Now that beast from the earth, let's go over on the far side and take a look at it. It's described as having 7 heads, and the 7th head has 10 horns. Now these 7 heads match up head for head with the last 7 of the 10 horns on the 7th head of this beast from the ocean, beast from the sea. And the first 3 little horns on this one were the barbaric kings that the Pope had plucked up by their roots. The 7 remaining heads, these are not contemporaneous kings that are alive at the same time. These 7 last horns are 7 kings that live one after another. And we're going to go through who they are in a moment. Justinian through Napoleon, the first 5 that are fallen, and then Mussolini, who is now also fallen, but he was the one that is of Revelation 17:10 between 1936 and 1945, and there's one yet to come. And so these 7 last horns, they match up horn for head on this beast from the earth. And the seventh head has 10 horns, and I changed them on my drawing, my little graphic. I not using the same horns that are on that beast from the sea, because those horns on that beast from the sea, let me go over there again, those are one after another. Those kings don't live at the same time. But these kings on top of this seventh head, they're all alive at the same time, and they're going to give their power to that beast that will become the seventh and final head of the revived Holy Roman Empire, who will be influenced or ridden or controlled by this woman you see at the back, just behind those horns in the saddle there. She's riding this beast. She's got when you ride a horse, you've got the reins. You know, the horse may be more powerful than you are, but you got the reins. You control where that horse goes and what he does with that power that he has. So that's the position of the woman who represents a big church, represents the false prophet. And back over to this beast from the sea for a moment. The 7 horns are those last remaining 7 horns are the same as those 7 heads. Okay, yeah. Now all right. Now let me come out and we'll go through who they are. On the screen behind me, we got these photographs of who are the 7 kings. Yeah, we'll put Revelation 17 up on the screen later at the last. But we zoom in on these pictures. We're going to talk about the first 6 kings first. Now, the first 5 of these are the kings that Revelation 17 verse 10 says it says there are 7 kings. We know who 6 of them are. The 7th, we don't know who that is yet. But it says, well, let's go ahead and go to this scripture here. It says there are 7 kings. This is Revelation 17 verse 10. 5 are fallen. We're going to discuss those 5 that are fallen. And 1 is. We're going to discuss the one that is. And the other is not yet come. We don't know who that is. When he does come, he must continue a short space. That short space is 42 months. And that's explained both in Daniel 7 and in Revelation 13. I think it's also explained there too. And we know that we'll discuss that period of time in a moment. But the 5 that are fallen, you see my note at the bottom, it says they're fallen as of April 11, 1814. Now there are some commentaries, friend, that try to tell you that the 5 kings that are fallen were related to those 7 mountains in Rome. And so these 5 kings were all in Rome. They were all at the time the Apostle John wrote verse 10 of Revelation 17 in about AD 90. There are a number of commentaries that try to tell you that verse is present tense regarding the 5 kings that are fallen. No, that was a future prophecy. And before those 5 kings would come and fall, there would be 3 barbaric kings that would come and rule the Roman Empire, and the Pope would have them plucked up by the roots. And then the whole thing is wounded. The whole Roman Empire is wounded for a time, but then Justinian, the first of the 5 fallen kings, restores it. And Napoleon, when he lost the battle, that is why the 5 are fallen in 1814 when Napoleon lost the battle at Waterloo. Then your 5 kings had fallen. And we'll come back to the one it is. But what I primarily want to do is go over these 5 that are fallen. And let's take one at a time. We'll zoom in on this. We'll go here. Go to the first of those 5 that are fallen. The first one is Justinian. And 5, he came to power in 554. And the Pope, this is the point. This is a point that the Pope did not ride any of the heads of any of the horns of the seventh head of that fourth beast until Justinian here, which is the fourth horn or the first of the seven remaining horns. So this is when the Pope first began to ride that beast. And I think I have let's flip over to this chart that I have from the book of Revelation. Now, I pasted little pictures over my chart, so I've done mine a little differently, but for my own study purposes. You can do what you want with your booklets and your charts, friends, but I've pasted the little pictures in of who's who inside of the chart, put the legs over there, but you see at the very top of this chart, there's the woman at the top who rides the beast, and she doesn't begin riding the beast until Justinian, and that's the point I want to make right there. So these commentaries that are trying to say that the five that are fallen existed at the time John wrote them in 90 A.D., no, not true, not at all true. All right, let's go back to Justinian, first of the five kings that are fallen. After him was Charlemagne. He was crowned by the Pope, and that was around 800 A.D. I think our chart will tell. I got a picture pasted on top of it on my electronic version online. If you go to cogtv.org and press the Gentile Kings chart, you can see this same chart I have with the pictures on it, and if you put your cursor over the picture, it will open up the text so you can see that, Charlemagne was crowned by the Pope in 800 A.D. After him, the third king of the five that are fallen was Otto the Great, crowned by the Pope in 962 A.D. Then following him, we go down to Charles V, who was the fourth of the five kings that are fallen. And then over one, and then Napoleon. Now, he took the crown from the Pope and crowned himself, but the Pope was there, and it's still considered that the Pope crowned Napoleon, even though impatient Napoleon grabbed the crown, stuck it on his own head, right in front of the Pope, with the Pope there in the Emperor's Hall in Frankfurt, Germany. And then at the Battle of Waterloo, that ended the Roman Empire for a while, but just for a little while. And it went into the abyss until 1936, when the man on the far right at the bottom there, Mussolini, invaded Ethiopia and proclaimed that he had restored the Holy Roman Empire. He had a concordant from the Pope. Mr. Herbert Armstrong noticed this news story, not on the front page, but in the news, and he broadcast it. Mr. Armstrong blasted it across the United States on his coast-to-coast radio program in 1936, announcing that Mussolini had just revived the Holy Roman Empire, and he therefore became the sixth head of the revived Holy Roman Empire. Now, it only lasted 9 years, because in 1945, on April 28, 1945, Mussolini was shot and then hung upside down from a canopy at an Esso gasoline station in Italy. And thus the sixth head of the Holy Roman Empire put the empire back into the abyss, back into the pit again, where it is now, until a seventh head comes forward. But so there are your six. So in Revelation 17, let's take a look at that wording again. Let me bring that back up on the screen. You'll see it says, as John was writing in 90 AD, he was saying, and there are seven kings, five are fallen. This is future, a future prophecy. And so he's setting a time stage for when this prophecy would be alive, for when 5, in fact, would be fallen. So that would be a time, any time after April 11, 1814, after Napoleon lost the Battle of Waterloo. Then this part of the verse becomes present tense. 5 are fallen as of April 11, 1814. April 11, 1814. So God was writing the Bible for us today and for the man who would lead us today, his end-time apostle for the latter days, Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong, who was 43 years old at the time Mussolini invaded Ethiopia and had a coast-to-coast broadcast and revealed that fact of revelation as to who the sixth head was, and that it was revived, and no one else, and so that's a sign for us who God's servant is. For the one is, that came about between 1936 to April 28, 1945, when they shot him and hung him upside down on that canopy at an Esso gasoline station. I'll go back to that slide in a moment, but I also wanted to point out here, friends, that Mussolini, even though he only reigned for 9 years, Napoleon only reigned for 9 years. Let's go back to we'll go back to where they were hanging. Mussolini was hanging from that canopy from an Esso gasoline station. His reign was only from 1936 to 1945, but similarly, for the fifth head of the Holy Roman Empire, Napoleon, he was crowned by the Pope in 1804. The battle, and this is late 1804, this is December 1804, just the last month. In fact, some say he was crowned in 1805, but that's not correct. He was crowned the last month of 1804. And then the Battle of Waterloo was in April of 1814. So he had just a little over 9 years that he reigned. And that's the same length of time. He was the fifth head of the Holy Roman Empire. That's the same length of time. Napoleon reigned a little over 9 years, and Mussolini reigned for just a little over 9 years, from 1936 until April of 1945. So even though it was a short reign, it wasn't any shorter than Napoleon's reign that put the whole Roman Empire going all the way back to Justinian. It put it in the abyss again, going back from this man here who restored it after the Roman Empire was wounded. He restored it in 554, and it had a good run all the way up to Napoleon to 1814. Or let's stop on Napoleon for a second. To 1814. And then from 1814 until 1936, the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, was in the pit, in the abyss. But then that man you see on the far right there, Mussolini, he revived the Holy Roman Empire as its sixth head in 1936. God revealed that to us in the United States, to the modern-day descendants of Manasseh, through Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong. And then Mussolini was killed. Again, as I said, he was hung upside down from a canopy and Esso at a Esso gasoline station in Italy, and that put the Roman Empire back into the abyss. Now, what's going to happen next? Well, when the seventh head comes on the scene, that woman you see on the back of this beast, the seventh head, the 10 horns, these are 10 kings that will give their power to this beast, the seventh head. And that woman representing false religion, the false prophet, the Pope, he will hold the coronation ceremony, most likely in the Emperor's Hall in Frankfurt, Germany. It's up on the second floor of the Romer building, of the City Hall building there in Frankfurt. And most likely the Pope will conduct that ceremony, and that coronation ceremony, and crown that seventh and final head. It may be a Habsburg. Is a Habsburg family alive today. We'll talk about that another time. But when the Pope does that, they'll actually take this crown, the crown of the Holy Roman Empire. I've seen this with my own eyes. It, for a long time, was on display in the royal treasury in Vienna. And after a feast, where was I that year? After a feast in Jerusalem, I took a plane over to Paris, France, then took a train from France through Germany into Vienna, and went and cast my eyeballs on the crown of the Holy Roman Empire in a glass cage, well protected, in the royal treasury in Vienna. And even though they suspend it on wires, they do put it on the man's head. You know, you wouldn't want to wear it all day. It'd put a crank in your neck, but they will put it on the man's head during the ceremony. And, I say man, could be a woman. They could reverse things, but probably be a man for that job. But this time, when this seventh and final head comes about, it'll be the time of the Great Tribulation. It'll be the time of the greatest martyrdom of God's saints we've ever known. It'll be the time of World War III. It'll be the time, thankfully, when Philadelphia is taken to the wilderness, to a place of nourishment, protection, final training, safety. And it'll be the time the two witnesses are out doing their thing. Some believe God may resurrect Mr. Herbert Armstrong to finish the Elijah job for that. Maybe clean up the robes of his son and forgive his son. Could happen. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying be prepared in case God does it that way, friends. But the end of all that will be after the 42 months that this beast has to reign and be in power. Then God will smash that great image that represents all the kingdoms of this world right on the toes of that big image, and away she goes. She'll fall. So this image in our studio here that we've got up on the two columns, it'll be toodaloo for you when Jesus Christ returns. So friends, there's a little look, and that's why we've got those slides behind me on this screen to keep in mind the 5 kings that are fallen, the 6th king that came and is from 1936 to 1945 when Mr. Armstrong was in the prime of his coast-to-coast broadcast in the United States. God gave it to one of Joseph's sons, Manasseh, modern-day Manasseh in America first, and the base from which God was doing his great work. And then later went worldwide and broadcasting out of Europe and around the world, and became a very vast and very great work. And many of you came as a result of Mr. Armstrong's broadcasting, and we'll play him somewhat more and more. And I want to play that one comment just one more time, where he says, because it's truth, you want to get in on it.
Because if it's truth, you better get in on it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Armstrong. That's the way he said it. Because if it's truth, you want to get in on it. And brethren, I do, man. It's truth. I want it. You want to give me all of that? You can give me. Now, I got a question earlier today that I want to try to answer. And the question was, I'll answer a little bit. I may respond to the person back by email, but I'm just going to think this through and talk it for everyone for a moment. And the question related to where people should be for Sabbath services. I've had to wrestle through that myself. As the apostasy got going, there were a number of us who, in Pasadena, there are some people still out there. There's good 40, 50, 60, 70 people still in West Valley, and then another 30 or 40 people over at a Glendora congregation that meets on Sabbath, still under Joe Jr. But for several years, I stayed at the auditorium until just a few weeks before it closed. In 2001, they closed and started meeting in a Baptist church a few blocks away, and those people in that Baptist church that let headquarters people meet over at their Baptist church building were kind of amazed. Boy, you got this beautiful building, you're meeting over here in our old church building. And but of course the explanation, well, they were selling that building, selling the auditorium, and so on. But I was there until just 3 weeks before our last meeting, and then that 3 weeks was Passover 2001, when three of us were told we were being suspended. Joe Jr. had said nobody would be disfellowshipped any further, so the local pastor got creative. He said, well, I'm suspending you three guys for 2 months. And then he changed the suspension to 6 months, and then he made it indefinite, which, essentially equals a disfellowshipment from fellowshipping in the congregation, but are coming to services. But since he couldn't disfellowship, we would still meet with brethren at restaurants on the Sabbath after, or people's homes after the Sabbath, after services. And, the brethren still fellowshipped with us because Joe Jr. had said there wouldn't be any disfellowshipments, but the local pastor disenfranchised us. He told us we couldn't attend services, and he did that on the day Passover was starting that evening. So, but the three of us, we got together and had the Passover ourselves. And the fellow's home where we had the Passover with his mother-in-law, he got suspended the following week after, when the local pastor heard that he let us meet up at his home for Passover. And we met there because his mother-in-law was handicapped, and she always does Passover at home, so we were there and helped do that with her. All right, friends. Now, but the question was, what do I do? When I was just telling you, I stayed as long as I could. Now, in 2001, after that occurred, and a local pastor had done that, this is in Pasadena, my mother had a major stroke, and she fell, and she asked me if I would just give away all my things and come back to Alabama and help her and Dad. So I prayed about that and said, yeah, Mom, I'll do that, come back and help. And at the same time, I read the verse that said, if they persecute you in one city, flee to another. Well, as I prayed and fasted about that told me, hey, they've done away with headquarters. The pastor that told me I couldn't come to services there in Pasadena anymore was just a local pastor now. He's not a headquarters pastor, and he wasn't the pastor general. And so when I got into Birmingham, a few days before Passover, I attended the Passover with the Birmingham congregation, washed a local fellow's feet, which fellow I saw the next Sabbath, and I've told you that story before, how he was going to work the next Sabbath, until I said, well, I see you next Sabbath. He said, no, I'll be working, and I asked him where to show me in the Bible where that says we don't keep the Sabbath anymore. End of that was, he said, oh, well, I'm going to tell my boss I'm not going to work on the Sabbath anymore. Oh, well, I see you next week, next Sabbath. Yeah, I'll be here. I'm going to tell my boss I ain't going to work on the Sabbath. And I've told you the whole story. It's longer than that, but I want to try to be a little bit brief tonight, and or this afternoon tonight, friends. So after 3 weeks in Birmingham, the local pastor, when he came over, I showed my mom James 5, even though she's not in our church, and asked her, would you like to be anointed? Our minister does that. And I would already ask him, would he? And he said, yeah, I'll come do that if your mother would like that. My mother said, yeah, I would like that. So he came over, met my parents, then came out to my trailer in the back where I wasn't staying in the house then. I was in the trailer when I first got home till Dad asked me to move on back in the house because when Mother would fall, he couldn't get her up. His back was bad. So, but the minister came out to the trailer with me, and in the privacy of the trailer there, he says, Steve, I heard that, and he'd put it this way, I heard you were disfellowshipped, so I called your local pastor back in Pasadena. I asked him why. And he said, we spoke for 2 hours. And he said, I asked him every question I could think of, and whole 2 hours, he never gave me one reason that justified having put you out in Pasadena. And so he says, I told him, I'm same rank as you are, Dennis. He said, I'm a local pastor, you're local pastor. I'm putting Steve back in. And so he put me back in. Well, I was kind of glad to hear that. But I stayed because, as I just told you, the one fellow that was working on the Sabbath, and I asked him one question. Show me in the Bible where it says we can work on the Sabbath, or I don't know why anybody would want to. I love the break myself. I consider it a delight to stop the week's work. Whew! And, the servile type work stuff you have to do, even fixing breaks in main water lines and mailboxes that drunk drivers run over in your lamppost, and that happened to me recently. I'm really struggling with a lot of those things, but it's okay. All of it's working out real fine. But so there were some benefits to staying. For one thing, not jumping ship prematurely until God shows you where you should go, if somewhere, and staying for the sake of brethren who are confused. And the one I named you is not the only one who's been helped turn around. And I've got some brethren right now that are meeting with the Birmingham congregation on Sunday who are saying, we really should be keeping the Sabbath. And so I'm trying to, and they would like me to try to get a service for them. They're 100 miles away from me, but I'm still going to try to work that out. I've got a car I'm going to trade in on a van with a little cash, and that'll be my own, but I'm going to designate that to a fellow that needs some wheels and see if he'll drive up and get the people and bring them to a local area where we'll hold a fellowship, and I may do the live stream from there. We'll see how this is going to go. I appreciate your prayers about that, brethren, because that could make the thing we do here more interesting and could definitely be helpful to some elderly people who had Sabbath services taken away from them, and they don't want to go fellowship with any other group. They don't feel like that's right to do. They feel like they should try to stay with their pastor they knew. But if I don't call it a name or put a church name on it, a blankety-blank adjective in front or after Church of God, they'll be happy if I come up with some services for them. So I'm looking into doing that. And the question really was, what about these ministers that are doing services and they're not really following, they're watering down what Mr. Armstrong taught us? Well, there's a verse on that, and it's in Titus 1. It's verse 9, but let's lead up to it. Let's start in verse 7, because I want you to understand, in answering that question, I want you to understand who Titus is talking to in verse 9. By looking at verse 7, where he says he's talking to the bishops, he's talking to the ministry. He's saying, for a bishop must be blameless as the steward of God, not self-willed, not soon angry, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre. And then I'm just going to go through the next verse, also verse 8, which precedes verse 9. Keep the thread. God is talking to his ministry. This is important because I want you to hear what God is saying to the ministry in verse 9 when we get to that. He's saying, for a bishop must be a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, holy, temperate. And then, still talking to the ministry, the bishops, he says in verse 9, holding fast the faithful word as he has been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. But the first part of that verse is the main point there, friends. Holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught. Brethren, as Mr. Armstrong himself said, God is still revealing truth through me, through Mr. Herbert Armstrong. Where did we get these wonderful truths we have? We got them from God's servant and apostle, through whom God gives truth and gave us truth, through Mr. Herbert Armstrong. Now, if a minister starts, Mr. Armstrong said that he gives us the trunk of the tree, and the ministry should give you the branches and the twigs. But those branches and those twigs, they have to stem off of that trunk and the roots and trunk of that base tree. They can't be branches and twigs off on another tree. We got to stay on that same trunk. Even if you get with branches and twigs of detail, as Mr. Armstrong said the ministry should do, they should add the detail, and with the study and learning they had from the trunk, but they got to stay on the trunk. Now, when they start going away from the trunk, as some have done, then there's a problem. And some do voting. I've wrestled with a few regarding that, and they just poo-poo it, like because of the apostasy. But and some have, we have helped create confusion by all the names of these, and people even call it churches of God. There's only one church of God, and it's us. It's not an institution. It's not an organization. It's not a building. Even though we had a wonderful building dedicated to God, the church is not the building, and it's not, and again, not an organization, not an institution. It's us, whom God has called and whom he is forming into a building. We are a very precious building God is forming into a holy temple, much more special than any building or temple ever in Israel, in the Middle East. And so I'll be saying more on that. Friends, I bit my tongue earlier, and so I want to be brief, and you'll probably appreciate that too, I'm sure. And I worked hard this week putting in concrete and post and a whole new, we're putting in a whole new main water line. And so I had an exhausting week. I was really glad to see this Sabbath come. It's been a wonderful Sabbath for me, although I am a little tired from last week. So I'll appreciate your prayers for strength, that I can get these things I need to get done. We can get the congregation going. Small thing for the people that want to return to keeping the Sabbath, who feel like they've been forced into a Sunday thing, but they want somebody helping them have services on the Sabbath. So I would appreciate your prayers. God, help me find a place for them that's convenient for everybody, or reasonably convenient, and that I'll let you know how things are going. I think this van may be a good idea, where we can go pick them up, bring them to a place, fellowship on the Sabbath, and we may try to put some of that here. Hope you like our new studio setup, friends, a virtual studio with I can change those slides behind me. We'll keep big old great image here in the studio with us, both up above and over on this side over here too. Very important we stay abreast of what's happening in the world that relates to the seventh and final head coming together, which essentially means this. It means that the toes on this great image, the feet and toes. Let's go down to this one. I think you see his feet better on this one. They're partly iron, partly common clay, miry clay, which don't mix, but 5 from the eastern foot and 5 from the western foot will give their power to one seventh and final beast. And it'll be done through, let's come back over here to this one. It'll be done through that woman you see on the back, who represents the false prophet, who will hold the coronation ceremony and crown that seventh and final head, that those 10 horns, those 10 contemporaneous kings will give their power to this seventh head of the revived Holy Roman Empire, which I went through this earlier, but let's say it again. It'll be the time of the Great Tribulation, time of World War III, a time of a great martyrdom of God's saints. Philadelphia will be taken during those 42 months to a place in the wilderness that triangulates where Daniel described in Daniel 11, verses 40 and 41 as being east of the waterway between the Lake Tiberias and the Dead Sea. That is the land of Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. That triangulation right there, that's where Petra is, by the way. And whether it be Petra or not, it's going to be in that general area. And it'll be the time of the two witnesses. Well, friends, that's it for today's Sabbath service. Thank you for joining me, and hit me with your questions. I'll be happy to try to answer them for you. Did I cover everything I wanted to cover here with you? There is one. I'll mention the chart from the book of Revelation. I think I mentioned it a moment ago. It's on one of our web pages from the home page. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll find a link that says, one of them says 777 chart. The other one says Gentile Kings chart. That's this one. And it's interactive. As you run your cursor over the pictures, the picture goes away and the text opens up, and it tells you what you're seeing in the picture. Like the first one will tell you it's Justinian, and he restored the imperial kingdom in 554 AD. The next one is Charlemagne. It'll tell you he was crowned in 800 AD by the Pope, and so on. And the original words of Mr. Armstrong, watering down here, friends. We don't go for watering down garbage. A lot of apostate, even before the apostasy was exposed, they were already trying to water things down. Even one of the men who worked in publishing in Pasadena is the minister in the Birmingham congregation now, who took the congregation over to Sunday, to Baal worship. So, the stage was already set for apostasy even before Mr. Armstrong died, and before, and it's something God allowed, and God does allow tares among us. And he straightens it out at harvest time. He allowed them to grow up with us. They work as a good test for us. And God's, remember what he did with Abraham and Isaac. So he'll let us be tested once in a while. He'll even do it once in a while. Like when he told Abraham to take his son Isaac up and sacrifice him. So and yet God had made the promise that through Isaac that Abraham would have great number of descendants. Abraham believed God could or would resurrect Isaac. That's the bottom line of that. Thanks for joining me, friends. Have a wonderful rest of the Sabbath, a good week, and I hope you'll be with us during the week for Nightcast, today's current news related to the Bible and prophecy. Things are really starting to run wild now, and one of the big stories we'll be covering Sunday night will be how the British pound sterling is really taking a run against the euro. Is really the value of the British pound sterling is really trumping over the euro. And that'll have some impact. It's going to make Germany and the Europeans not real happy with the Britons, and they'll work something in the background. They'll try to take more of Britain's money, of brother Ephraim's money. But we do know one thing too: Ephraim and Manasseh are going to be siding up against their brother Judah. That's some things we're watching for. Be sure to be with us during Nightcast as much as you can. And for those of you that pray for me and support the ministry that I do here, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it. I'm not in it for any money or anything like that. Most of the money for this comes out of my pocket, and some of you that have helped, that's wonderful. Appreciate it, but I don't ask anybody to do that. If God leads you to do that, fine. But thanks for joining me here, friends. We'll be back Sunday night on the Nightcast channel with the day's current news related to the Bible and prophecy, and God willing, we'll be back here next Sabbath as well. Again, happy Sabbath, And thanks for joining me. Bye for now.